Alright, MFers, what is up? This is Prez Kamori here. It's about 7:30 in the morning as of this recording, and I feel like I really should have done this video about a week ago, but this is my answer video to my earlier Q&A video for everybody that's left a comment, asking me a question or whatever, much appreciated. And I'm going to be answering those off. So I've got a whole list of all these questions. Everybody that's wanted to ask me something in the comments, of course I didn't answer any of the dumb shit questions. I didn't put those in here. So, and there might have been something else I missed, maybe a worthwhile question. If there's something else you wanted to know, let me know in the comments and I'll type it out myself. I'll get to responding earlier. And sorry, by the way, if my voice doesn't sound the way it should. I haven't had a whole lot of sleep recently, with work and college recently, especially too. I've had to pull an all-nighter recently, actually just now, just so that I can adjust my sleep schedule because I've got work tomorrow. But before anybody asks in the comments when episode 38 is done, to give you an idea of where I am right now, I'm about 10 minutes in, but I ran into an editing problem along the way that kind of slowed down all of my progress. But I'm making pretty good progress, now that I've got it finished up. So anyway, so this first set of questions is from Brawler549 Reborn. And he had a couple questions. One, what kind of camera do you use to record? I use a basic 1000 Nikon, I believe it is. It costs around $500. It's like one of those somewhat bigger cameras. And it's got, the autofocus and everything. That's especially helpful too when, I'm recording by myself. Just to make sure that everything's not totally out of focus. Anyway, his second question was, what made you start the Yu-Gi-Oh! Excalibur project? I really started looking into the possibilities of doing something Yu-Gi-Oh! Related since I was getting better at editing at the time. That's when Paxton and I used to hang out a lot. So that's when I really started to, try my luck with that kind of stuff. Remember, the first episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Excalibur was just a real-life duel. The whole Excalibur plot was nothing but, random useless information that I made off the top of my head to make it legit, I guess, have a reason behind that one duel. I never thought it would really become a full thing afterwards, but, sure enough it did. Anyway, his third and final question, he said he's starting his own Yu-Gi-Oh! Series. Do you got any tips? Not really in particular. What I always like to say, and I've told this to a couple people actually that go into editing like me, doing something not wrong isn't the same as doing something right. I'm not sure if that necessarily makes any sense. But, you gotta have that defining thing that's really gonna put, your live action series, to separate from others. You can't just, I've had a couple pals that have done this too, like copy and paste Excalibur and call it their own live action series. That's all bullshit, It really gives you the identity behind it once you've really, God, I can't even talk right now, but once you've really got that identity behind you. And I would also recommend really finding a good, unlicensed soundtrack stuff, particularly from older video games, anime stuff. That got me in trouble a little bit with copyright, eventually with monetizing my videos, but, eventually I just said, fuck it, it's not worth, limiting myself anyway. So, just explore around YouTube, find whatever you can. The soundtrack is really going to help. And, script out your duels, please, But that's obvious. Anyway, this next user is called Zmos, whatever. Anyway, he says, hey Prez, so I have a couple of questions. Do you play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh? Like keeping up with the metagame and playing, etc.? Yeah, actually. Just recently in Milwaukee, I actually won this huge championship, too, like a state competition. This is rounded out to be my 9th championship, actually. I'm going to be entering a few more tournaments later on in the future to maybe get my 10th championship. But yes, I do play competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, but not necessarily at the pace that I, Would like to, because I'm super busy in real life. 18 years old, I gotta start tackling more responsibility. But it comes with the territory, I can't really complain. Anyway, his second question, do you plan on uploading any Yu-Gi-Oh! Duels in the meantime on this channel or on a separate one by any chance? Would love to see your playstyle. Well, that's much appreciated, and just because of that, yeah, I might actually have to do that. If people really want to see me do, actual duels with what I use for, my real life deck, do unscripted duels maybe. If that's what they want to see, then sure, I'll look into that. But I can't necessarily set a timetable for how often I can do that stuff. Anyway, Zimaz, his third question was, do you play Magic the Gathering? I was looking at learning how to play it. Sean was originally teaching me how. But, the cards are expensive, of course, and I'm a huge penny pincher. So, no, I don't play it, really. Anyway, third user up here is from Photon Neos. At Prescomori, what happened with your Yu-Gi-Oh! Excalibur episode 36 where Sean OTKs Pedro with his dragon deck, along with Maverick giving his Dreadroot to Sean? I still remember that episode, and why was it taken down? Dude, you are seriously misinformed about that. But, episode 36, that wasn't even episode 36. I think that was like episode 33 or 34. Can't remember off the top of my head, but it was for sure not episode 36. And I never took that video down. I've never taken any of my episodes down. Whatever episode you're trying to think of, describe. I know what episode you're talking about, but it's not been taken down. Neither has the actual episode 36. And then he goes on to say, what will you major in college? I'm currently looking at a degree in business management. I figured that would be a good degree to go into. Anyways, his next question, will you play the new Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards like True Maju Garzet? Sure. I don't see why not. Not necessarily the Pendulum monsters, but cards like True Maju Garzet, for sure, once I get the chance to script it. Anyways, last question, last thing, did you ever went outside your state area like New York City? That's all, and good luck in college and score a huge GPA if able. Anyway, much appreciated, man. I always appreciate people looking out for me. But I've been outside of my state area, but recently the furthest I've gotten out was Iowa. I've never been to the New York City area. The furthest, believe it or not, the furthest I've ever really went out east was going next door to Michigan. I've been around the West Coast a little bit. Not necessarily the West Coast at all, but East Coast I have not even been able to fucking touch up on. And it sucks, I would really like to, but, that's just part of living life. I don't get to travel a lot. Anyway, this next user is Dragon Core 7. This guy's awesome, by the way. He's been a fan of mine for a while. Hey, Prez, here are some questions for you. 1. What other card games do you like besides Yu-Gi-Oh? Well, I would like to say Magic the Gathering and Cardfight Vanguard, but, I don't really get into those. I might learn how to play Vanguard later, but, again, I'm super busy. I always really liked the Bakugan card game, though, before the actual fucking anime, flopped out. I don't know if anybody remembers Bakugan of all things, but, it used to be a thing, and I was really, into that kind of stuff. But besides Yu-Gi-Oh, no, right now I'm not really into anything else. And his second question, what's your favorite video game so far this year? Oh, God. You know what? Now that I really think about it, I haven't really played any video games up to this point in 2015, but I guess anything that's recent, I guess Killer Instinct for the Xbox One, that's fucking going back to like late 2013, but that's like the newest game that I've, played so far, up until at least that era. I'm a huge fan of Killer Instinct, too. Like, they really haven't disappointed. I mean, like, the DLCs are obviously a scam, but, once you've got the game going, it's pretty amazing. Anyway, next up, a guy named DanMad297. Hi, Prez. I like your Yu-Gi-Oh! Excalibur show. I'm going to give you 2 questions. 1, do you make your stories Yu-Gi-Oh! By yourself, or no? By the way, I'm, glad to hear you like Excalibur. What I used to do with the Yu-Gi-Oh! Stories by myself, I obviously do it all by myself now. Everything's done by myself. Whether I like to or not, Sean isn't around to help me out. My older brother Jake isn't really online as much. There was a couple occasions where, Sean would help me out slightly with storylines whenever he was involved. Jake would help me out just a little bit, for the in-depth kind of stuff, but it was mostly by myself now. And his second question, if you make it for my live action story, can you make it as a crossover? Sorry, man. No, I don't take a whole lot of requests for that. If you're live action, if you are super serious about this, and you showed me a couple episodes, and if I see it as a quality thing, then maybe I'll consider a crossover. But those kind of requests, no, sorry, I don't take those. Anyway, next user is the Yu-Gi-Oh! Brony, another long-term fan of mine. Number one, what's your number one favorite duel monster? As probably most of you have already noticed, it would be the Komori Dragon for me personally. But in serious gameplay, I would have to say maybe the Dark Armed Dragon. It has that really good, pop resiliency. It's an easy summon. I also really like the Dark Creator because it's a great reinforcement for my Dark Devourer deck in real life. It provides a great defense, and it allows me to really easily combo off. Especially with other shit, if I wanted to synchro out, if I had like a tuner or some material out in the graveyard, I especially stack that stuff up, so it's a really easy access card. So his second question, do you like to watch cartoons? If so, which ones? I don't really watch cartoons as much, again, because I'm super busy with work and college. If anything, I every now and again I do like to go back to stuff like Ed, Edd n Eddy and Billy and Mandy, some of the older, like early 2000s stuff on Cartoon Network. That's the kind of shit that I grew up with personally, so I always like to go back to that kind of stuff. Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, Samurai Jack, other stuff. I feel like I'm forgetting a couple, but memory grows short. You can never go wrong with that kind of stuff. Anyway, his third and final question, what are your thoughts on Pendulum Monsters? I think overall Pendulum Monsters, the thought behind it is a little bit stupid, but, the way it's progressed so far within the Yu-Gi-Oh! Game, it looks like it's starting to fit in a little bit. I mean, I was shaky with, the Synchros and Xyz coming in at first. It's getting me a little bit longer to get used to the Pendulum Monsters, of course. But I haven't played Pendulum Monsters like ever. I kind of understand the rules behind them, but I still have yet to play any Pendulum Monsters, mostly because I'm not interested in them. I don't really necessarily see a big value in playing them, especially with the kind of deck that I run. So there's your response to that. I don't really see a whole lot of value in them. As of right now, with my playstyle personally. I know that there's plenty of people that are going to use pendulums anyway, but that's just for my experience personally. I'm not too fond of them. And I'm probably not going to use them in live action, like, anytime soon. Anyway, next user is Austin Carter. Let's see, he had plenty of questions, actually. Alright, first, how long does it take to make an episode of Yu-Gi-Oh! Excalibur with recording, editing, etc.? That really depends on the time of year, of course, and what kind of resources I got and what part of the storyline I'm doing. But as of now, I think it takes about, you could probably make a safe bet for about 4 weeks, maybe a month. That's about the pace that I've made. Right now it would be that amount, of course. It really depends on what I've got going in real life, but about a month an episode sounds about right. His second question, will you ever do something on DeviantArt? Probably not. I'm not into that kind of stuff other than, I'm not too much of a computer artist anyway. 3, was there ever a chance that you would upload a vid on someone else's channel, like a way of getting more out there, like how Underground Members X has done? No, I don't do that. I don't really find that to be ethical. I'm not that much of a dick to try and, put myself out, through other people's channels. Not that I'm saying everybody else that does that is a dick, but, to a certain extent, I'm not going to go out of my way and do that. If anything, I'm only going to be doing pure advertising through, my Prez Komori links, Facebook, Twitter, my official YouTube, personal friends, word of mouth, stuff like that. Anyways, fourth question, are you going to try and do another Goatman video? I certainly hope so. Mishko and Carl, the two guys that I filmed with, I can't really hang out with them as much in real life, because they live about 15 miles away from me each. Kind of a pain in the ass to get people together for videos. And his fifth question, how long do you work at your dad's motorcycle shop? My schedule runs around like 10 o'clock to about 5 p.m., 7 hours, only because I'm, 18 years old, and the specific role, I can't really stay necessarily for 8 hours. I still try and get as much out of a week as I possibly can. I try to be a good employee as well. So anyway, next user is Austin Davis. He spelt my first name wrong, by the way, as Prize. He's like, Dear Prize, I would like to know, when did you start playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And why did you decide to make the Excalibur series? I already answered the Excalibur question earlier, the whole story with Paxton. And starting to play Yu-Gi-Oh! That was originally when I was about 4 or 5, when it debuted, of course, in North America for its English dub. Believe it or not, the first thing that really attracted me about Yu-Gi-Oh! Was Yugi's hair, of all things, and the text font of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Logo. I thought it was pretty cool, actually, to begin with. And then I saw, its cartoonish kind of look with all the monsters, and I was like, hey, this is actually pretty cool. But you gotta understand, I was 4 or 5 at the time, so, that was a given. And, yeah, I believe that was his only question. Next up is Tyler Pesic. Question number 1, will there ever be another tourney on Dueling Network? I don't host tournaments anymore. I don't find a real reason to, unless, somebody else wanted to do something like that. If there was a huge demand for me to start a tourney, then I will. Second question, is there going to be more duels with the new power of the Synchro and any Xyz monsters in Season 3? Let me think about that. Synchros, of course, they've always been around, but in Season 3, I'm starting to kind of warm up to the idea of Xyz. I know I've told fans 1,000 times that I'm not going to use Xyz summons in Excalibur, but that was only because I don't have, the graphics and technology to make, a convincing Xyz summon. It's not like in Project games where you can just flop a card in and, steal some anime picture. I don't do that. I usually use the card. But I do this thing with layering, though, where I get, the overlays and the actual Xyz card. So I can probably do that now. So I'm going to put that into consideration. And he also said, I got you on Twitter. Can you follow me back? Sure, man, once I get on Twitter. Anyway, next user is Galaxy Eyes Master. When will you make the last episode of Excalibur? And can you make another series of Yu-Gi-Oh! With Xyz monsters? I just addressed that. I'm not going to make a whole other series other than Excalibur, with just Xyz monsters. I was going to name it Yu-Gi-Oh! Armageddon, but then Sean kind of stole the name and the idea. So, whatever. And the last episode of Excalibur, not necessarily episode 40, so I can't necessarily tell you that. I think, let me think. Season 2 should end at about maybe late October, I would guess. It really depends on what kind of time I got for getting this editing done. Anyway, next up is Tyler Wilding. This guy's another, longtime fan of mine. Much appreciated, Tyler. First question, what type of deck do you run in real life? I run a Dark Devour deck, kind of like in Excalibur, but obviously more fit to the game. Otherwise, I run a combination of zombies and Black Wings competitively in real life. That's what I use for my state championship. And second question, what is your favorite monster card outside the Egyptian gods, wicked gods, and sacred beasts? Well, I already said Komori Dragon 4 days. Anyway, next up, Stardust Synchron. Hey, Aprez, my question is quite a simple one. What is your favorite deck? Mine is Junk Doppel. Keep up the great work, man. Much appreciated, man. Glad to hear that, you like my stuff. My favorite deck has to be, you would expect me to say Dark Devour, but I have this really cool deck that runs on, economic stuff where, I drain out my opponent's life points, but I do this annoying shit where I keep special summoning monsters and gaining life points. Some of my Skype friends, you would know this, I call it my basic Thugonomics deck. For anyone that's an older John Cena fan, that's the reference there. But yeah, it's not really necessarily meant for competitiveness. I just kind of bullshit around on the field and gain life points. It's just fun. Anyway, next is Alternator, Joshua Altman. Prez, I understand you're starting college this fall. I am as well. Just out of curiosity, which college or university are you set on attending? I'm going to Nikolai Tech. It's not really a special college. I worked my ass off to get like a 3.8 grade point average without any grade boosts. But like it's like that default school that you go to like when you have nowhere else to go. You know, you can pretty much half-ass school and still kind of go to this school. You know, it's only for 2 years anyway. But I can't go to any fancy college that fits my grade because, you know, location wise I'm kind of discriminated, and I don't come from a super rich family. So yeah, that's kind of why. Also, I see people asking you about having you as a part of their live action series. I believe this is because you are helping out with Project Games. And no, that's not the case. Do you have any intention of being a special guest and actor to any of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Live action series that people have asked you to help out with? No, actually. I don't like necessarily doing that unless I know for sure that they're serious about it. I think I've addressed that earlier. However, I'm going to have one other collaboration besides Project Games I think you guys are going to love. But, you know, I gotta keep that a secret for now. You know, so I don't spoil anything. Anyway, next questions come from Cyber Karibo, another longtime fan of mine. Dear Pres Komori, I have a few questions. One, what are your plans for Excalibur Season 2, if there is going to be a Season 2? Well, you must be talking about Season 3, because Season 2 is almost well into being finished. For Season 3, I'm pretty much going to go freestyle with the storyline, whatever I can think of first and whatever's most convenient, and then I'll go on from there. I don't necessarily have a set villain, but you know, that's all in open air. Anyway, his second question. I have the strange skill to build amazing decks for other people, but when I try to make one for myself, it sucks. Do you have any suggestions on how to fix that issue? Yeah, it always helps to do a lot of test runs because you're building something for somebody else. If you do a test run for yourself, DevPro is really good for that stuff. Like if you're facing the DevBot or something. Check to see what's being limited, because if you got something that's being limited down to one, usually I'm assuming that your friends have like some request on like what kind of cards they want in your deck. Try some of that meshing for yourself. Like me personally, I try to run a bunch of trap cards. I ran a Mirror Force back when it was at 1. You know, whatever you can find. Look, just find whatever kind of trap cards you can find to be most efficient, because they are pretty underrated in the game itself. But just take a look at what kind of decks similar that you're building for your friends compared to what you're building for yourself. Find what the difference is and just kind of capitalize on that. You know, unless you get to be more specific on like what kind of stuff that you build, you know, that's really all I can, you know, that's all I can say for you. Anyway, his third question, he goes on to say, in episode 37, I was surprised to see you use a light monster. Were you aware that Ultimate Accent Kicker was a light attribute monster when you decided to use it? I overlooked it when I originally decided to use it, but, you know, it didn't make too much of a difference once I, you know, put that in anyway. But, you know, I'm glad you noticed the change. You know, it's a pretty cool change up. And his fourth question, do you take suggestions from your fans? Mostly only video requests. You know, I've addressed it a couple, like 2 or 3 times about the whole live action crossover thing. Anyway, this is one of my personal friends, Logan Cox. He goes on to say, so who are your biggest rivals you've dueled, or the duelists that you've come to show a lot of respect to throughout the years? Well, for anybody that knows Zane Sullivan, he's a big, you know, big duelist out of Minnesota. I become a huge rival with him. I've had a tournament final against him before. Probably the best Infernity player that I've seen out of anybody. The guy that I beat in the finals of the Wisconsin tournament, Tyler Scola, you know, he's kind of a big duelist in his own name himself. He was pretty good. He ran a, you know, he ran a bunch of cool shit, actually. But, you know, he's one of those meta players where, that rare kind where he actually knows how to play the game and doesn't treat me like shit. So, yeah. I also got to fight, not fight, but, you know, duel against Jose Raul. He's a famous, you know, YCS duelist. You know, I got my ass kicked a couple times, but, you know, I picked up a few wins against him, too. So, you know, those kind of people in particular. Also, Sean Dorn, of course, and Dallas Brock, those people as well. Next up, this guy's Dark ZZZ Draken. He just goes on to ask, why don't you try making a video of real dueling? I mean, nothing is rigged. I've already, touched base on that earlier. I might actually consider dueling, doing that kind of shit. Depends on what kind of people want me to do it. If people really want me to do this kind of stuff, like enough people, then sure, I'll get around to that. Next up is Mike Nee. He says he has 2 questions for me. One, what inspired you to create Yu-Gi-Oh! Excalibur? I already answered that question. So, in his second question, what movie maker do you use? I've used Pinnacle Studio 15 for episode 1 and then layered off with Windows Movie Maker for the sound effects through episodes 1 through 20. Episode 2 through 20 something, like 23, I've used Pinnacle Studio 16. 23 through 27 or 28, I believe, I've used Pinnacle Studio 17. No, sorry, it's actually through 30 something. Probably 31 or 32 that I've used Pinnacle Studio 17. And then from every other episode beyond that, I've used Pinnacle Studio 18. So I've been staying loyal through, one program. But, glitch-wise, it's kind of starting to piss me off. But what are you going to do? Anyway, next up is from Jace and Marco. Dear Prez, 2 questions. 1, any tips on people attempting to start their own Yu-Gi-Oh! Live action series? I've already answered that. Find your own identity, get a good soundtrack. Prove to me that this is like a legitimate thing. You gotta put the quality behind it. You can't tell a story in 10-minute episodes or something like that. Or with a shitty camera like I had in episode 1 with, the rendering out. So that's really all I gotta say. Otherwise, to elaborate, I gotta see what your work consists of. And his second question, what is your dream matchup to make for Hardcore North Wrestling? Holy shit, now we get into the really good question. For me personally, I guess I would love to see, myself as Prez Komori go up against Death Harvest in some crazy bullshit like, concrete cage match or something stupid like that. People would really like to see that, I guess. Otherwise, I would like to see Prez Komori versus Eclipse. From an editing perspective, of course, that would make a great storyline. But for anybody, that obviously outside of a Prez Komori rivalry, I think I would really like to see Barboza and Eclipse, because, they're both masked. They got, like, those punk-ass sides to them. So I think that would be pretty cool. Anyway, next up is Adam Humphrey. Hey, Prez, I have 2 questions for you. 1, if you have $5,000, what would you do with it? Well, I would probably leak it out for college tuition anyway, because, college has been a scam recently with financing. But otherwise, with $5,000, I would spend it. I mean, no, not spend it. What the fuck am I talking about? I would obviously save it. Because I'm such a huge penny pincher. I hate spending money. And, second question, are you looking for a challenge? If you are, can I take you on in a duel? My DevPro and Dueling Network, I've got both of those. DevPro, my username is Prez86. Dueling Network, my username is Prez Komori, no spaces. So, if I'm online, go ahead and challenge me. I get a shit ton of messages, though, so if I don't respond to you, don't take it the wrong way. It's just that, I can't respond to, like, 15 or 20 people at once. That alone by itself is a challenge. Anyway, next up, Josh McFarland. Do you think your work at the motorcycle place will be something long-term, or is it just something for the immediate time being? I haven't really thought about that. I'm going to wait until, seeing long-term how college pans out to be. If it really proves to be too much, then obviously I'll stop with the, where I'm working at the motorcycle shop. But I'm hoping to work there long-term, at least, towards the end of my college career. Only because I need the money. I kind of rely on that payroll nowadays. And his second question, also, what would you like to do once you graduate from college? I'm saving up money to possibly travel to 50 states, because I have a huge passion for traveling. I figured if I've got to do something in life, that I'll really look back on, like somewhere in my early 20s, that would obviously be it. You gotta understand too, like I've been caged in with Wisconsin my entire life. I've been sick of having to graze over like the entire state square foot by square foot. I'd like to go out and maybe see somewhere as simple as next door in Minnesota or something. But yeah, I'd like to eventually touch base on the 50 states. That's what I'd like to do immediately after college. And he said he'd be definitely interested in answering for a Google Hangout sometime. And you're like the only person to actually respond to that, so thank you. And this next one is from Amanda Gutierrez. She's been great to me on Twitter, by the way. I really appreciate that too. She's a great fan. Hi Prez, I recently started to watch the series and I love it. My questions are, 1, how do you plan out the script for the dueling scenes? By the way, I really love that, you've really been getting into Excalibur recently in the short time that you have. That's awesome. And, for scripting out the dueling scenes, it's really been getting tough because you can't necessarily teach that with duel choreography, as I like to call it. It's just having a feeling of knowing like a mental note inside of your head on like what's going on in the field. That's why like in past, like in the season 1, I've fucked up on a couple of plays, like not knowing what's on the field. But it's a learning experience. Nobody can get it right the first time. Like all those online credits, they can't really talk shit because it's a progress. Nobody's gonna get it perfect. Obviously, it's throwing myself into the fire. That's how I like to call it. I would like to think though that I've been getting much better with it. If anything, better than anybody else with live action series. Not to brag, of course, or anything. But that's just the way I see it. I think I've really gotten pretty good with the whole dual choreography thing, though. And she asked, number 2, how do you plan out cutscenes filming-wise, from switching one character to the other? I think what you mean by that is, like, the order of which I record people. What I used to do was, if I had a duel between, like, let's say, Prez and Apollo Schiffer, I would do one scene as Prez and then switch out my costume to Apollo for the next scene, and then switch out again his costume for Prez, and then switch out, manually. But that was a pain in the ass, even though it was, like, convenient for editing, because I didn't have to, change up the order of the clips given. So what I eventually had to do was, like, do all of the scenes for Prez Komori at once, and then take, the next day, do all of my Apollo Schiffer scenes, cut out the cutscenes one at a time, and just place them in, whatever given order. That's just proven, filming-wise, to be much easier for me, Even if it adds, like, an extra minute for editing, it's not too bad of a problem. And she goes on to say, I love the show and the acting work in it. Wish I could be part of it, but I live in California. You never know. I might message you up on Twitter if you're really serious about the acting thing. I might get you a job, I worked that out too with Minako Kaiba. So, if I really need a female role, I'll hit you up, alright? Anyway, next up is The Hulk or Dead. This is one of my good pals, Ralph. Question number 1, will there be more seasons of Excalibur? About a 50-50 chance. Like I just said, I've been super busy. Second question is, how did you come up with the Dark Devour deck idea? It originally pegged off of episode 1 of Excalibur, just random dark cards that I thought were cool, but eventually getting off to base of the theme of using the graveyard and the underrated, by the way, dark counterpart archetype, since nobody's ever touched base on it, that's really gone on to do successful competitive-wise, so I thought might as well be the first, have my own dual playing style, because, nobody can really say that they play exactly like me. I don't want to be like any of that meta bullshit, where I could just copy off a deck list or anything. I like to make my own kind of stuff, really get that identity piece behind myself. And his third question, if you want to duel anyone in the live-action world of Yu-Gi-Oh!, who would it be and why? I would really like to duel either against Sly Hito, for sure. People have always said they would love to see Prez Komori versus Sly Hito. Otherwise, I would really love to see, I would love to personally script out a match where I can go up against Travis the Trainee, better known as Travis Telford. We haven't actually talked, though. I've talked with Tyler Telford, though. But it's really got that, panning out, to have a storyline or something stupid like that. I think Prez Komori versus Travis the Trainee would be really easily built up. It could really be something special. It would really test me as a script writer to make something great of it, and I think it would really turn out to be great. And who else can say that they've gotten a duel against Travis the Trainee? That would be a pretty huge honor by itself. Anyway, the Max Z Gaming goes on to say, "Dear Prez, where the hell did you get that sign you were holding in the last Q&A video?" That caution sign, I actually found that in the back of the motorcycle shop that I was working at. It wasn't up anymore, and, it was hiding under a bunch of, gravel and grass by the dumpster, and I figured, might as well take it in. And, he also said because I play multiple parts, he also wonders if I do line by one character. I've already answered that question for you. And, next question is from Dave Ping 243. He goes on, it's a long question, but he goes on to say, that if, we do another video regarding my duel against Paxton, that's not really possible anymore because Paxton's kind of sloppy with acting, and, he's in Milwaukee right now, and I'm in, North Wisconsin. We don't see each other in real life, ever anymore. And, whenever we try and get together for anything, I usually try to keep filming away from, our relationship as friends. So, yeah, sorry, that's, as much as I would like to have that as a redo of episode 1, that's probably not going to be possible. Anyway, next up is, ShadowBoss675. He's another, long-term fan of mine. "I'd like to chat or video chat with you sometime, Prez. So, have you always been a fan of using dark monsters, and do you plan on using Xyz monsters in your deck?" I've been thinking about it for Season 3. I use Xyz monsters in real life. Plenty, of course. Not as much as Synchros, though. I always really liked dark monsters, though, especially, as a little kid, especially... back in the day, of course, bringing stuff back from the graveyard at the speed that I do, especially in competitive levels, it's unheard of. It's fucking crazy. So, yeah, I've always really liked dark monsters. Yeah, sorry, that's my computer sound. Melissa Smith, she goes on to ask, what made you come up with the name Excalibur? This is really gonna sound stupid. This probably isn't the answer that you're looking for. I thought the name Excalibur sounded cool. That's literally it. There's no thought behind the name Excalibur. I heard it somewhere and I'm like, oh shit, that sounds cool, so I'm gonna use that. That's literally it. So I've had to organize the whole storyline behind it. Yeah. Anyway, Bo15243 goes on to ask, what are you gonna do after Excalibur? That depends on when I'm thinking of ending it. Assuming that I'm done after Season 3, that's gonna be whenever. I can't set that out specifically of what I'm gonna do, because I don't know when that's gonna end. But if for some reason I cut it short at Season 2, I'm gonna focus mostly on college, and like I just said, saving up money for my road trip. And, let's see who's next. Anyway, XX, the Gaming Freak XX, goes on to ask me, do you have a Dueling Network account? If you do, I would love to play with you sometime. Yeah, like I said, my dueling account name is Prez Komori, no spaces. Feel free to message me whenever I'm online. And the last guy, 420MLG Gamer, nice username by the way. He says, what happened to your purple hair? Well, I dyed it eventually. I got really sick of it looking pink because, I trusted my fucking mom of all people to, go with the hair dye and make it look good. But she added way too much bleach, twice as much as she should have added. Before adding in the purple hair, my hair actually looked whitish. But, the dark purple faded really fast, and most people mistaken it for pink instead of purple, so that's why I had to go back to, dyeing my hair black, and then eventually it goes back to, my regular brown. So that's why. And he also goes on to ask, what happened to Retarded Adventure Part 3? It's not canceled or anything, but, I try to keep it, at New Year's. I'm well aware that we're, 8 months behind. I just gotta get off my sorry ass, get a bunch of pals to do it, and actually do something. That's the problem right there, though, because I don't have a lot of people to help me out. I don't live near anybody, of course. The closest friend I have near me is like 15 or 20 miles from me. Sean is on the other side of the state for me to continue that shit. Paxton's even further away. He's in Milwaukee. So, for you to see the situation that way. And the last question out of all of them. Prez, you like Super Smash Bros. Brawl or Super Smash Bros. For the 3DS? I don't play the 3DS, I go with the Wii U, and I like the Wii U version better than Brawl, only because, no disrespect to Brawl or anything, but I see the Wii U as more like an add-on to Brawl. It's got everything that Brawl has, plus, then some. If you know what I mean, that is. Plus, it's got a couple more characters to boot. Overall, Super Smash Bros., it's a pretty respectable series. With whatever game. They haven't had a bad game yet. So anyway, thanks very much for the questions, guys. Hopefully I've given you all satisfactory answers. Sorry I haven't talked as well as I have. I've been spending an all-nighter sitting in my bed right now. I'm kind of tired. Anyway, I'm hard at work with episode 38, and this has been Prez Kamori, and I will see you guys later.